How I learned to actually study before it was too late. When I first got to university, I was confident. I thought I could wing exams like I had in high school, intense cramming for a night or two, coffee, and raw willpower. The first semester taught me a brutal lesson. I failed a midterm because I tried to memorize everything 2 days before the test. I remembered facts for a few hours, then watched them evaporate. That failure forced me to stop treating studying as a last-minute sprint and start treating it like a real skill. The turning point came when I read about the forgetting curve and memory consolidation. The idea that memory decays quickly unless you review it, that what you learn today can be mostly gone in a week without revision, was a revelation. Once I understood the curve, I stopped cramming and started scheduling short, repeated reviews. That alone changed everything. Retention went up, stress went down, and my grades followed. But theory wasn't enough. I needed a system I could actually follow. Here's what I learned, a mixture of psychology and practical habit design, and how I applied it after my disastrous first semester. The psychological basis, short and clear. 2 learning truths drove my approach. First, the brain consolidates memories during sleep. Reviewing material before bedtime helps lock it in. Second, spacing, repetition, and active processing, making connections and explaining ideas, are far more effective than passive rereading. In other words, review consistently, sleep on it, and make the learning active. Those principles are supported by educational psychology and are emphasized in practical study guides. My 5-step method, how I actually changed. Below is the method I used and you can use to go from chaotic cramming to steady, confident learning. 1. Stop the all-or-nothing mindset. Schedule tiny, regular sessions. After my failure, I created a weekly schedule with short sessions, 25 to 50-minute focus blocks on weekdays, each dedicated to a specific topic. This wasn't long at first. It was consistent. The idea is to interrupt the forgetting curve with frequent reviews so information moves from fragile short-term memory into more stable long-term memory. I use the Pomodoro-style blocks to keep momentum and avoid burnout. This kind of structured, consistent practice beats huge, noisy sessions the night before. 2. Use active learning. Explain, connect, teach. Passive reading is seductive. It feels like you're learning, but it's shallow. I began writing short summaries in my own words, making concept maps, and crucially, pretending to teach the idea to someone else. When you teach, gaps appear instantly. You discover what you don't actually understand. This explain-to-learn trick made complex ideas suddenly manageable. Many education guides recommend converting study content into teachable chunks because teaching forces retrieval, which strengthens memory. 3. Swap screens for paper, print, and write by hand. At first, I used PDFs and laptop notes because they're convenient. Then I switched large portions of my study to printed texts and handwritten notes. Writing by hand forces you to process information, summarize it, and structure it. And research and pedagogy both point to better retention when learning involves written, physical materials rather than pure scrolling. This simple change improved my recall dramatically during exams. 4. Build micro-reviews and sleep strategically. Every evening, I spent 5 to 10 minutes revising the key points from that day. That quick review right before sleep leveraged memory consolidation. Sleep helps the brain stabilize what it learned during the day. Over weeks, I found that content I'd only glanced at once stayed with me because of that nightly consolidation routine. This is low effort, but very high impact. 5. Design the environment and defend it fiercely. I created a few dedicated study spaces, one for deep focus, no phone, printed materials only, another for light work, reading, podcasts. I set phone-free periods and physically left my phone in another room when I needed deep concentration. Pick an environment with good light, minimal interruptions, and a simple checklist of what you aim to do that session. This cut down distractions and made every study block more efficient. Practical advice like this appears in many study guides because context and environment heavily influence how well you focus and retain. How I handled exam stress and test prep differently. In the run-up to big tests, I stopped trying to ingest new material at the last minute. Instead, I turned my spaced reviews into practice testing, past beepers, flashcards, and self-quizzing. Testing is a learning event. It strengthens retrieval pathways and reveals fragile areas. I also scheduled realistic mock exams under timed conditions. Doing these regularly reduced my anxiety because I always knew where I stood. Small habits that compound. Nutrition, breaks, and variety. I underestimated small things at first: hydration, healthy snacks, and short movement breaks. When you're physically tired or hungry, learning becomes slow and unpleasant. I adopted simple rules: drink water, avoid heavy meals right before a study block, and take 5 to 10-minute physical breaks every 45 to 60 minutes. I also alternated study topics to avoid mental fatigue. Switching between problem solving and reading helped my brain reset. These small habits kept me consistent. The tools I used and why they worked. Printed notes and highlighters forced me to slow down and process. Short, daily review, even 5 minutes before bed, consolidated learning. Active recall, flashcards, self-quizzing turned passive familiarity into durable knowledge. Pomodoro-style blocks with a single objective each increased focus and reduced procrastination. A quick practical checklist to start today. 1. Create a simple weekly plan with 25 to 50-minute focused blocks for topics. Schedule, don't guess. 2. Replace one evening of passive review with a 10-minute teach it out loud session. 3. Swap one digital reading session for printed text and handwritten summary. 4. Do a 5-minute review before sleep every day for at least 2 weeks. 5. Put your phone in another room during deep study blocks. Final note, why this works. This approach works because it aligns with how memory and attention actually function. Regular, spaced practice fights the forgetting curve, active processing builds deeper neural connections, sleep consolidates, and a low distraction environment allows those processes to happen. Once I stopped fighting my brain's nature and started working with it, studying stopped being a panic-inducing chore and became an organized and predictable part of my week. Grades improved, but more importantly, I felt calmer and more capable. If you're reading this and thinking, I don't have time, start with 10 minutes tonight. Print one page, write 2 bullet points, and review them before bed. That tiny habit repeated will change the curve much faster than one more all-night cram session.